A little about the BYLD group. What do we do? The group was set up in 1998 by Mr. Yogesh Sood and Mr. Sandeep Puthiraja. There's a host of leadership that assists us in the process. Some other credentials about the organization. The values that we live by are customer centricity, accountability, reciprocity, and entrepreneurship. These are the core leadership development programs with Blanchard. If you follow the pointer, so on your extreme left and moving diagonally upwards, you'll find building trust. Now, this is one of the most sought after, one of the most asked for program, especially in these times, because trust is something that takes a hit when you start working up virtually. So building trust is one such program that helps build the culture of trust in an organization. Then is coaching essentials. What are the bare minimum essentials of a coaching process? What is it that any coaching conversation should have is what this program discusses. We stress a lot on the mindset of a coach vis-a-vis the sheer process. There's a reason. On a lot of occasions, it was shared as a feedback that coaching programs try to propagate a clerical process of coaching. And they don't essentially answer, how do you make coaching a culture in an organization? If it's a clerical process, it's very difficult for people to align to it. It's very difficult for people to relate to it. It's not a natural, organic conversation. So that disconnect has been addressed here. Next in the core offerings and one of the most sought after programs right now is Leading Virtual Teams, a program which puts together 2 or 3 researched programs by Blanchard to address the human situation in virtual operations. Let me clarify, this program is not about which softwares to use, what technology would help us, because that I think we have all addressed already. We would have already considered what is needed at a technology front. However, what does this shift do to leadership? How does the need of an individual change? And by the same stroke of logic, how does what a leader needs to present to his or her people shifts? Okay. Then we come to our leadership pipeline related programs which are based on the etho of leadership pipeline by Professor Ramcharan. So at each bend of the pipeline, which means at each step up of expectations, role, relationships, and focus, the deliverables or the need of a leader changes. How do we address that is addressed here in this program, which is self-leadership. Self-leadership addresses an individual's answer to how do I, as an individual, irrespective of where I am in the organization, how do I bring focus to what I want to deliver, find the resources which are available to me in the organization, and also to diagnose and find the matching leadership wherever I can in the organization. This makes a person an open citizen within the organization. So this program is hierarchy neutral. However, on a lot of occasions, organizations find value in suggesting this program at the individual contributor level. The new 1 minute manager or the first time manager, one of the most reputed programs by Blanchard. It draws its value from the world renowned bestseller book by Dr. Kenneth Blanchard and Dr. Spencer Johnson. This book is The New 1 Minute Manager. It talks of those 4 essential skills that a leader or a new manager has to master. The first is goal setting. The second is praising, finding the opportunities to praise people and praising them. The third is redirect. So we don't believe in reprimand anymore. How do you redirect the behavior from possibly not so desired behavior to the desired behavior, which will give you results? And to conclude it all, how to wrap up your projects, your conversations, so that at the end of it, you have clarity of what worked for you, what did not work for you, possibly what could shift, and what do we feel happy about this experience. We move to the tenured managers. The program there is SL2 experience. SL2 experience is the world's most taught leadership languages program. So there are a lot of conversations that we discuss with people. How do you direct people? How do you align people? How do you coach them? How do you support them? When is it that you delegate to them, and what is the expected behavior in delegation? How do you keep in touch with people, and how do you hold one-on-one conversations? So all these conversations are discussed in depth. Why we call it an experience is because it can be run as a project instead of a 2-day program, and we rather suggest that we do that, and we have great experience in running this program. Next to that is team leadership. As we had discussed earlier, the focus, deliverables, relationships, they shift. Now you've become a manager of managers. Here, we are discussing more about not an individual, but an entire team. In this team, you want high performing team to be built up. So how do you create a high performing team? What are the important tenets of it? How do you assist people in developing such a team? How do you charter a team for it? How do you create the buy-in of the process? What are the different stages of development of a team? And how do you address each level so that people move forward towards being regularly and sustainably productive, is what we discuss in great depth in this program. Now we come to the strategic leadership layer, where leading people through change becomes one of the most important programs. On most of the occasions, we will find that change does not fail at strategy. Change fails at execution. Now, this is one program which talks of what are possible concerns of people. How do you address them so that you're able to align people? So this is a cultural fitment program. Be it leading virtual teams, leading people through change, or legendary services. Here, legendary services is the program that discusses in depth about an individual's own personal agenda or own personal vision of how he or she would want people to feel at the end of a conversation with them. Any client would be aligned to us or better aligned to you if you're able to address them at a connect level. So how do you want them to feel at the end of any conversation with you? We take people into deeper thoughts. How do we address the internal clients? How do we address the external clients? So if you look closely, the top 3 programs, this layer is talking of culture buildup in an organization. This layer is talking of how do you assist people at the value of leadership, which is very specific: trust, coaching, virtual environment. And these steps are aligned to the movement in hierarchy and leadership. So individual contributors to new managers or not so tenured managers, to tenured managers. This is managers of team managers. This is strategic layer or enterprise managers. Yeah. To assist these programs, we have other programs which are in support zone. These programs are essentially half a day programs. Not all, however, most of them. These programs can be presented and can become a part of your already existing and running leadership initiatives or learning initiatives in your organization. You pick them up from us, you plug it into any running program, and this will work. The few programs which have changed, I think they should have changed here. So we have conversational capacity here instead of challenging conversations. And we have few more programs which are just about to be offered. Now let's come to the point of discussion here, the main program that we wanted to discuss, which is leading people through change. So how do you lead people through change? When you're leading people through change, leaders need two skills which are very specific. One is their project management plans, and the second is their people leadership plans. If we have both of these intact, then there's a higher probability of our change to be successful. Yeah. In this session, we are going to discuss, not essentially learn, we're going to discuss about how do you lead high involvement change? How do you diagnose an individual's concerns with change? How do you involve others at each step of the change process? And how do you demonstrate a high involvement change mindset? So your own mindset should demonstrate that you want to create high involvement change. You don't want to just drive it authoritatively. Now, there's an unknown quote. It says, when you want to go fast, go alone. But when you want to go far, go together. What this means is, if you want quick fix solutions, if you want to make a cosmetic change, you can drive it top down. However, if you have to sustain a change and if you want to build that change as a culture in the organization, you'll have to work on your people first. You'll have to take people along. You can't just authoritatively drive it down. If I could request all of you to be very agile in the chat box, could you quickly give a yes or a no if you agree with this idea? Mm-hmm. All right. Now, which among these do you think are the top 3 reasons in your organization where you think that change efforts possibly derail? Not always. However, which among these could be the top 3 reasons that in your organization could derail change? You may want to put in just the number of the statement. Every statement is numbered. In the chat box, you may want to put in those numbers. So Adit says 2, 4, 6. Those being asked to change are not involved in planning the change. Yes, that's very important. People leading the change think announcing it is the same as implementing it. Oh, yes. And people leading the change don't define what success looks like. These 3 are extremely important steps. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you, Adit. May I request everyone to quickly be very agile in the chat box and quickly type in those statements that they think resonate best with them. So I see 4, 6, 8. All right. 11 to your list. Sure, Adit. So leaders fail to prioritize, leading to death by 1,000 initiatives. Yeah. Oh, yes. Relatable. So Indu says 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay. Don't communicate a compelling case for change. Leading the change, think announcing it is the same as implementing it. Don't identify advocates to influence those who are undecided or resistant. And those being asked to change are not involved in planning the change. Yes, these are very important steps, Indu. Thank you very much for sharing that. May I request all the other participants to quickly share the change initiative derailers in their organization or possible derailers. Could we quickly share the 3 digits? Nisha says 12712. Okay. Change is not tested or piloted. Barriers to change are not identified and fixed. That's important. So I think statement two comes as a common theme. Those being asked to change are not involved in planning the change. Yeah. Priyanshu says 127, barriers to change are not identified and fixed. Kanika says 129, people leading the change don't learn from resistors. Rakhi says 246, people leading the change don't define what success looks like. Oh, that's nice. That's very important. Rohini says 13th as well. Success stories are not collected or shared. I know, Adit. It's we've been very clever in putting these 15 statements here. So yes, these 15 statements are relatable. However, they'll start that jingle within you, wherein it'll tell you that if these aspects are addressed, certain statements are a very large canvas. So those being asked to change are not involved in planning the change. Now, there could be various reasons for that. It could be a strategic change. However, the involvement is in the hands of the executioner, which means, or the person who has to execute it, the executor, I'm sorry. And the person who's going to execute it is going to ensure that he or she shares the real meaning of that change and starts to address the personal concerns. So it can't be expected of the enterprise manager to be addressing everyone's concerns. However, people who are responsible for it, if they are not able to do that, then there is a huge shift. There is some challenge. So let's see how do we progress ahead in understanding what could be the possible concerns for people. There are two approaches to introducing any change in an organization. One is minimal involvement, because statement two came as a common theme. It has less involvement and it's a top-down change. There could be a high involvement change, which is more collaborative, and let's see what this approach could be. Now, the minimal involvement change would be, you would announce the change, and then you'll start to develop and implement the project plan. And we all remember that there were two aspects to change. One was the project plan, and the second was the people plan. We slowly fix implementation problems because, of course, there will be hiccups, and this is a top-down approach that we're taking. And then we move to compliance and marginal results, because we are stressing on the process. We are stressing on the process here, and this is very, very process-driven approach. So this is minimal involvement, top-down approach. Let's see how do we bring high involvement and collaborative approach. One is we start bottom up. So here we are going to involve more people in discussing what is and what could be, which means we are explaining the change case to them. We are telling them that this is where we are and this is what the aspiration is. When we move further, we collaboratively build a project and people plan. We have a project plan where people are appropriately and to their satisfaction addressed. The next step is quickly resolve implementation issues, because now you have two approaches to achieving the same goal or the same result. You know what the process would look like because you have the project plan. You have involved people in developing it, so they have higher ownership of it. And now if there's any hiccup, they quickly resolve it and start implementing it because they have a very clear idea of how to address these initiatives at a people level. Yeah. And then what you arrive at as a result is commitment and sustainable results. Any questions that I can answer at this point? So I'll be available to answer any questions at any moment, at any point. You can unmute yourself, you can ask the question. I'll be happy to answer it. Any questions till this stage? Okay. The issue could also be that change management is usually put as a competency at senior level in most companies. Yeah, Adit, change management and change implementation, the day an organization starts to decipher between the two, they would have arrived. Change management is precisely what we were discussing here as a minimal involvement change, where the change is announced and you're trying to manage the hiccups or slowly fix the implementation problems. Change implementation would begin at the planning stage where you're involving people. So if my hunch is correct, and if I can assume with a fair confidence that this is where you're pointing at, then we're absolutely there, my friend. Yes, that's correct. So what is the value that a high involvement change brings? Better results. They are faster, as we saw. Less us against them feelings. Less of us against them, which means there are two divided lines with people on either sides of those lines. And there's a region in between. Why did I say two lines? There's a region in between where there are people who are still not decided about, who don't have a view of where they are. Yeah. Challenges surface sooner. Yes. A more realistic change plan because people are involved. Correct. Resistance goes down, buy-in goes up. It increases. It just doesn't culminate into complete buy-in. Of course, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but the buy-in increases and resistance goes down from their current levels. Trust increases or goes up. Future change leadership capability gets developed. Okay. Let's see, what do we mean by courage, curiosity, agility, and grit? This represents the change mindset, a high involvement change mindset. Let's quickly see what we mean by that.
When it's time to initiate change, many leaders are so focused on progress and results that they don't involve the people impacted by the change early or throughout the process. They may think it will slow the change effort down. But if successful change with high levels of adoption is truly the goal, high involvement is essential. Change leaders who embrace a high involvement change mindset demonstrate these four attributes: courage, curiosity, agility, and grit. Courage is defined as having strength in the face of challenges and uncertainty. Change leaders demonstrate courage when they move toward uncomfortable feedback, are honest about what needs to change, and are willing to share control of the change. It takes courage to initiate change and to allow others to have a voice in decision-making. Curiosity is having a strong desire to know, learn, or understand something. Change leaders demonstrate curiosity when they ask about people's concerns and questions, express interest in the feelings and opinions of others, and involve people in the change process. It takes curiosity to consider whether a different way of doing things might work better and to want to draw from others' experiences and expertise. Agility is defined as the ability to think, understand, and move quickly. Change leaders demonstrate agility when they recognize the need to change and act quickly, remain open-minded when things don't go as planned, and anticipate and respond to the concerns of others. It takes agility to adapt and shift as needed in the face of new information. Grit is having resilience and the ability to withstand discomfort. Change leaders demonstrate grit when they exhibit passion for achieving long-term results, persevere in the face of challenge, and demonstrate resolve in seeing things through. It takes grit to tenaciously stay the course in the face of setbacks. By demonstrating the 4 attributes of a high-involvement change mindset, change leaders can be more effective and can also develop this mindset in others, which makes the organization more resilient and change-ready.
So what we understood about courage, curiosity, agility, and grit is courage is standing firm and having the courage to share what is the change initiative and involving others. Curiosity is the high involvement mindset wherein you're open to the ideas from others and we are trying to understand, we are trying to decipher together if my idea or someone else's idea works best. Agility is the capability to quickly understand and implement the change which is required, which could on a lot of occasions be the marginal shift or the marginal change. Grit is standing firmly behind the idea of change and the idea of what you want to achieve and being open, as we shared earlier, to how to reach there. Now, what's courage? Strength in the face of challenges and uncertainty. Be vulnerable. It's okay if someone else has a better idea. Tell the truth about what it is and what needs to change. Change your approach to change if that is required. Share control where you're involving others. You're comfortable with that. Curiosity is a strong desire to know, learn, or understand something. So whatever you don't understand completely, inquire to find more insights into that. Express your interest in others' experience or experiences, opinion or opinions, feeling or feelings. Why am I differentiating the two? There's every opportunity wherein in our excitement as a leader, a person may have just one concern, a person may be concentrating on just one experience, opinion, or feeling, and we may accentuate it by asking a lot of questions which may not be relevant in that context. So do not feed into their insecurities in your conversations. Try to understand from them. And that is where listening becomes very important. Demonstrate that you value others by involving them in the change process and hearing their voices. Seek their opinion. Listen to them and give a rationale as to why you're accepting or not accepting something, but do that as a group, not as an individual. Yeah, Tanya, that's a good thought. Listen to learn. Correct. Agility is your ability to think, understand, and move quickly. So your capability or your ability to recognize the need to change and act quickly, it's required that you stay open-minded. Otherwise, you will have an internal resistance to any new idea, and that would not allow you to be very fluid in the process. People are the biggest variable. Human beings are the biggest variable in any change process. And we have to remain open-minded to accepting the resistors as well. If you're able to anticipate, then you're able to flexibly respond to others' concerns as well. Not on all occasions, however. That brings us to grit. The ability to withstand discomfort, to show or demonstrate resilience, is grit. You demonstrate your passion for achieving long-term results. There's perseverance and resolve. However, let me please qualify it. We are polite because it's a human-to-human interaction. We are mindful of other people's concerns. We clarify to them that this change is important and why it is important. And we try to over communicate in these situations. In change, please over communicate, because these are the common reactions to change that people will have. And this is where your 4 mindset skills will come handy. People feel awkward and ill at ease, and they're also self-conscious whenever something changes. Their readiness to change may be different. They may feel the resources are not enough, and they're also, you know, they're also concerned about what's going to move away. What is it that they already have that is going to be taken away, and if at all they will gain anything in this. Change is not comfortable. In this, everyone has his or her individual context, and this context is not a shared context, because the layers of concern and the stages of concern. So Adit shares that in his experience, under communication often happens from the perspective of junior employees, and that is why they lose interest in the change process. So if something is so externalized, Adit, and just to build on what you've shared, if something is someone else's prerogative, I'm also informing myself that it's not my prerogative. And if it is not my prerogative, then someone else gets impacted, someone else benefits. I am looking at it. I'm only observing it from a distance. When that is there, people have a disconnect from the change initiative. Yeah. And the more people talk of, the more they get exposed to resistors, they find reasons not to get involved. And this is why instead of under communication, we should do over communication. So you can't always push your limits. There's a limit to how much change you can handle. Some changes are made, but they're not noticed because it doesn't impact a
Am
larger
I disturbing
population.
you guys? I'll move this. Huh?
Thanks, Mahima. Guys, my request would be, if you're not speaking with everyone here in the group, may I please request you to keep yourself on mute? Thank you. People can question why the leader is not making the same changes that they are being asked to make. And this is why the change should start reflecting in our behavior as a leader. And if the change is not focused upon, people will go back to their old behavior because they are very comfortable there. Now, there are stages of concerns that people will have. And in any change initiative, it's the most important for us to be able to address these stages of concerns. So let's look at what these stages are.
Changes in our lives provoke strong reactions. They can disrupt our routines and be unsettling. They can also ignite our creativity and energize us. How we react depends on our past experiences and our confidence in the proposed change. When changes occur in organizations, the people affected have concerns. In fact, they go through 5 predictable and sequential stages of concern. These concerns shouldn't be viewed as resistance. Rather, they are unanswered questions that need to be addressed for the change to succeed. With information concerns, people want to understand what the change is and why it needs to happen. They may ask, what's wrong with the way things are now? What do we hope to accomplish? People at this stage don't want to be sold on the change. They need to understand it and have opportunities to ask questions. With personal concerns, people want to know how the change will impact them personally. They may ask, will I win or lose? How can I influence this change? People at this stage need to be inspired and excited about the future and reassured they can successfully make the change. With implementation concerns, people want to know the plan and whether they'll have a voice. They may ask, how well thought out and realistic is the change plan? What happens if it doesn't go as planned? People at this stage want to know that obstacles to success will be surfaced and addressed. They need to develop confidence in their own and the organization's abilities to successfully implement the change. With impact concerns, people want to know the change is working. They may ask, is this change effort worth it? How do we get everyone on board? People at this stage want proof the change is making things better and opportunities to learn from others' successes. With refinement concerns, people want to know the change can be improved over time. They may ask, how can we do this better or faster? Do you trust us to lead this change? People at this stage want to know that a tipping point has been reached and most people are succeeding with the change. If people's concerns, especially those of the first 3 stages, aren't heard and addressed, they will comply but not commit to the change. Giving people opportunities to ask questions, express their concerns, and have a voice in planning increases commitment as well as the probability of success.
So as we heard here, there are these sequential steps or stages of concerns that people will have to any change initiative. What's a concern? A concern is a set of unanswered questions, or it could be one unanswered question. Yeah. This becomes clearer when we look at this sequential staging or sequential planning of concerns in a real life example. Let's say, just a second, we have a message. So Adit asks, why aren't all the 5 stages depicted in a straight line? Why is step 5 bending? Adit, visually this looks like a bend which is downwards. However, if you look at it in a 3D view, if you were to consider a 3D view, this is a room which has a longer wall, and then there's a wall, there's a shift in the way. Now, why there's a shift at impact? I'll just come to that. I'll just explain that. At the information level, people need more information. Now, let me take an example. Let's say there's a person who's our driver, or let's take a more relatable example. Few people like me would not have a driver or a chauffeur. So let's take a domestic assistant or a domestic help. Let's say our domestic help comes and informs us, and he says or she says that their mother, who lives in the village, has not been keeping well for a very long time. We leave everything. We first need more information on that, right? What does not keeping well mean? How long has it been? How far away does your mother live? A few questions that we will ask. Now, this information set is linked to their second step, which is our personal concern, because there's some change which is about to happen, and we are forecasting that change. We can foresee that change. So our personal concern would be, will you be gone? Do you want to go there? Okay. However, our personal concerns will be parked with them as or under the garb of implementation concerns. People who have personal concerns do not park their personal concerns straight away. Very few people do, on a very few occasions. People who are stuck at a personal concern are going to ask you implementation concerns, and they'll try to answer their personal concerns while trying to inquire about the implementation. So your concern would be, how will you go? Do you plan to go? What are you trying to implement, right? If you're gone, who's going to take care of the work here? Are you going to depute someone or give me some references to speak with? How long will you be there? Will you be able to come back? Now, all these questions are asking about implementation, but they are still stuck at the personal concern. How long is the absence of this individual? When is it that the individual is coming back? Is it definite and sure that this person is coming back? So have you booked your tickets to come back? Is that relatable, guys? Are you able to find some consonance here? Once these concerns are addressed, let's say the person says, I'll only be gone for 15 days. In the meanwhile, this XYZ person will be coming. I've given a download to this individual on this. Our personal concerns are addressed, and we move on towards more practical and more pragmatic implementation concerns. A clear indicator, yeah, and let me share a cheat sheet with you. A clear indicator of how to decipher if a person is actually asking implementation concerns, or is the person stuck at personal concerns and asking implementation concerns in the garb of implementation concerns. They want to answer their own personal concerns. While asking the questions on implementation, if the person is getting emotionally excited, then the person is still stuck at the personal concerns and using implementation concerns as a smokescreen. If the individual has addressed information and personal concerns, then they're only inquiring about implementation, and they can now move towards actual execution. Why there's a shift in impact? Because in any change initiative, and Adit, to come to your question, in any change initiative, there are advocates, people who are really advocating for that change. There are resistors, people who are saying that we don't want this change. And there's a huge population of people who are undecided. So whenever you have more advocates and less resistors, when you've answered the information and personal concerns for most of the people, you can never answer it for everyone, but for most of the people, and you started to implement it, and people can see that it's now getting implemented, and there's a buy-in which is getting created. Once people start to experience the positive impact of this change initiative on people, and people are accepting it, this bend is reached where you have now more advocates in the system than resistors. And the undecideds now have more access to positive feedback on the change than negative. And they have a higher possibility of becoming advocates. A very simple example in that would be the political rallies. They are neither meant for advocates nor are they looking at addressing the resistors. How can one simple, address to the nation or address to the local people shift a person who has resisted something? They would have their own hard mindset towards it. They would have their own experiences, their own logics, references to it. These political rallies are only meant to influence the undecideds, to answer their concerns. And you will see a pattern of how these questions are answered. They share a lot of information about what has happened and why, if something could not be done, why it could not be done. Then the politician will try to answer why a personal concern could not be answered and how they are looking to answer it now, what all they did and what all they went through. Then they try to answer the implementation concerns to increase the buy-in among undecideds. And then they share the impact. This many people have gone to this new change, this initiative is now successful. They start creating a hype about how many people are following it, how many people are actually agreeing with it. So all the purpose that these political rallies try to solve is addressing the undecideds, make them become the advocates of this change. And once you start getting that, there are a lot of people who come up with refinement concerns, and they say that this needs to be refined because these are the things that we think should change or could change. And then you bring in that refinement and you start with the fresh refined process going back to information and personal concerns. Guys, before we move forward, I would like to inquire with you if you have any questions about these stages of concerns. These are definitely sequential. They need to be answered before a person shifts to the next stage. And it's at the heart of how do you lead change. Mahima, it's an important question, but refinement, if not done after you have actually executed or implemented something, then you're still trying to only address a concern at implementation stage. Once you applied the common agreed knowledge to what you want to implement, and then when you try to address it at a refinement stage, you implement it, you show people that this has worked and this has not worked, then you have a better test case of suggesting a certain refinement. Otherwise, it's just a hunch. And this is why we say that impact and refinement concerns are sequential as well. Yeah. So diagnosing your stages of concerns involves diagnosing who are advocates, undecideds, and resistors. Let's see who they are.
Wouldn't it be nice if, at the beginning of any change initiative, everyone understood and supported the change? Unfortunately, that scenario doesn't happen very often. Typically, only about 15% of the people affected by a proposed change will be ready to support it from the outset. Roughly 70% will be unsure about it, and 15% will resist the change. These three attitude groups, advocates, undecideds, and resistors, describe how people impacted by the change view it. Change leaders need to respond to and involve each group differently in the change process. Advocates are generally positive about the change because they are change adaptive, have the skills and experience the change requires, or understand the need for the change. Advocates are committed to making the change happen. They can help make the case for change, lower the concerns of others, and co-create the change plan. Undecideds are not interested or engaged in the change. It's not on their radar, or they are ambivalent about it. Undecideds are neutral. They don't have a strong opinion about whether the change is good or bad. They can be influenced to become advocates, but if they're neglected, they can become resistors. Resistors oppose the change. Perhaps they don't think the change is needed, have had bad experiences with other change initiatives, or don't like change in general. Resistors can negatively influence other people with their attitude and reduce the chances of successful change. If their opinions are heard, however, they may let go of their resistance. An important goal of any change leader should be to build advocacy. Leaders who understand how people feel can adjust their approach and, in the process, convert undecideds and resistors into advocates who support the change.
Free change groups, the best way to involve everyone is to ensure that we are first listening to everyone. We're getting advice from all the three groups. If someone is resisting something, there must be a reason. It must come from their very closely held beliefs, which are usually formed out of experience and less out of people informing people. So what is their experience? How it could be different here? And if there's some intelligence to gain from it, what is it that they can see which we can't? These are the questions which will get answered for them. So it's important to address and get advice from all three attitude groups. The three attitude groups are advocates, undecideds, and resistors. Advocates and resistors should be engaged in planning for the change because they will give you the poles opposite information. People who are undecided will always act confused. There are two groups of attitudes which have clarity in their mind. One group says, I like this change because of these reasons. The other group says, I do not like this change because of these reasons. The undecideds are confused. If confused people are planning for the change, they're adding to the confusion. Yeah. And on a lot of occasions, we make this mistake while planning for change. On a lot of occasions. Thanks, Adit. Engage your advocates in explaining why the change is needed, piloting the change, training others, and sharing successes. While fixing implementation issues involve all the three groups because the largest population is undecideds. Frame and build are two very important aspects. In a kickoff, when you frame, you're addressing the information and personal concerns. You will find usually the leader of the organization doing a town hall, informing enough and more about the change. And secondly, telling people that these could be possible concerns and this is how we plan to address them. That's one. The second would be, what are your concerns? If there are some larger common concerns, let me see if I can address it now, or let me come back to you with an answer to it. With that, you build the case for change where people are now stuck between personal and implementation concerns. They'll go to their leaders, they'll ask about the change. A lot of communication, a lot of information sharing would happen. There'll be a lot of repetitive conversation. But the twist of the organization and the leadership should be to provide as much information about change as they can here because they're trying to build the case for change. Then we go live right towards the end of building it. And this is where the finer implementation concerns, which don't have an overhang of personal concerns, will start surfacing. And then we will be able to strengthen the change because now people will start experiencing the impact as well. Better the planning, better the strengthening. This is the tipping point, as Adit had shared. This is where the impact or the positive impact starts getting felt because you've gone live with the change. And this is where you start entrusting people. More and more people start getting entrusted with some responsibility towards making the change effective and successful. And this is where you go into refinement of the process again. any doubts, guys, any questions that I can answer about how do you implement change now? Now, there was one layer which was about the stages of concerns, and to build on it, how do we implement the change? Any questions here that I can answer for you? All right. So let's see what could be the possible change leadership strategies.
Why do some change efforts fail while others succeed? The difference is in how leaders approach change. Effective change leaders involve the people being asked to change, engaging them in framing the change, building the change plan, sharing the impact, and owning the change. High involvement is what helps organizations create a culture of change readiness. Involving people lowers resistance and boosts commitment, substantially improving the success of change initiatives. There are 4 high-involvement change leadership strategies. Here's the interesting part. Each strategy addresses 2 stages of concern. Frame addresses information and personal concerns. Leaders need to present a compelling case for change and an inspiring vision of the future. Framing the change is describing the gap between what is and what could be. When leaders paint a picture of the future in which people can see themselves succeeding, people generally support the change and contribute their good ideas and energy to help make it happen. Build addresses personal and implementation concerns. Leaders need to involve others to surface potential implementation barriers and to co-create a realistic change plan. By building the change plan collaboratively, those being asked to change feel they have influence and a voice in change making, and feel reassured the right resources are in place for successful implementation. Strengthen addresses implementation and impact concerns. Leaders need to help resolve implementation issues as well as share evidence the change is working. They need to model the mindset and behaviors expected of others and address unwarranted resistance. The outcomes of successfully strengthening the change are increased impact and reach. Entrust addresses impact and refinement concerns. When the majority of people's impact concerns are resolved, the change reaches a tipping point, and leaders can begin to rely on others to own and lead the change. Entrusting the change means delegating day-to-day change-making responsibilities while staying connected. This strategy increases the probability of success and increases change readiness for future changes. People don't want to be left out of the change process. They want the change done with them, not to them. Effective change leaders honor that and know that when everyone is involved, the probability of success significantly increases.
So we've seen how do we implement change and how do we strategize for it. There's a force field analysis. A lot of us would be aware of it. A great way to assess where are we in the change initiative is to check what are the forces which are working for the change and what are the forces which are working against the change. We do this analysis, we have a clear view of what we need to answer for and what are the forces which need to start working in favor of the change. In middle somewhere is the status quo. We stay where we are. The more the forces for push against this status quo, and the more we are able to decrease the resistance or the resistors, the more we move towards the change. So Rumi said he was a great thinker, he was a sociologist, as most of the thinkers are. When you let go of who you are, you become who you might be. So this is exploring your possibilities. And that's the best what we could come up with to to assist or support the idea of change. We're open to your valuable feedback. We are also open to any questions that you may have. Now, this is my contact details. You may use the email ID or the phone number or possibly both to seek assistance or to connect back with us or connect back with the person who has invited you to the webinar. If there are any questions that I can answer, I'll be happy to. All right. So thank you very much, all of you. It was a pleasure discussing change and how to lead change in an organization with all of you. Till we meet next time on a new subject or possibly a same subject. It's me, Rajul Kansal, signing off from here. Thank you very much for your active participation. You have a nice day ahead and a very good weekend.